after we finished davening, we announced the Tehillim of the day. So let me give you a little background on the Tehillim for the day. It was in the days leading up to the high holidays in 1926 in Russia, and the previous Rebbe, Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson of Lubavitch, seemed very worried and concerned, and just the general mood around him was very heavy and very, very tense. Now, you have to remember, this is 1926 in communist Russia. The communists are closing in on him. He's waging a war to keep Judaism alive in the Soviet Union, and Chassidim are dropping. I mean, the noose is starting to tighten around his activities. And that whole high holidays during the month of Tishrei of 1926 was very, very tense, and people felt the pressure in the air. That Simchas Torah in 1926, the previous Rebbe spoke about this idea that he wants people to start saying Tehillim every single day. He says that it would bring blessing. He wanted that, he was begging that it's something that should start to take root in the Chassidic synagogues and communities, as well as in non-Chassidic circles as well. Something that he wanted, he was launching sort of a worldwide campaign that all Jews everywhere, at the end of davening in the morning, should recite a section of Tehillim, and afterwards they should recite a mourner's Kaddish. In other words, sort of like incorporate it in a sense, and really establish it as a practice that becomes something attached to the end of davening. It's not part of davening, but at the end. And this was his plea and his request. Now the Tehillim, we know, is divided, and you can divide it in a number of ways. So the Tehillim itself is divided into 5 books, corresponding to the 5 books of Moses. Then the Tehillim is divided into 7 parts. The 7 parts corresponding to 7 days of the week. Now, if you take the Tehillim, the 150 chapters of Psalms, and you divide it by 7, you get large chunks and sections of Psalms for each day. But the Tehillim is also divided into the days of the month. So there's a 30-day breakdown of Tehillim, so that every month you can start from the first of the month, and you can go and finish the entire book of Psalms in every single month. So there's a monthly cycle of Psalms. So this is what he was encouraging and asking, is that people start to recite the daily portion of Tehillim as it is divided by the month. And like this, you finish the entire book of Psalms every month. This is what he had requested. And fast forward to Sivan, just 10 days ago, to the 15th day of the month of Sivan of 1927. So that was 10 days ago. And the previous Rebbe is arrested. The NKVD, they come to his house and at his apartment, and they arrest him, and they confiscate all kinds of stuff from his house. And the previous Rebbe is now incarcerated, and this is the famous story of Yud Beis Tammuz, his release and liberation from prison. That's a whole other story for another time. But it starts with him being arrested. After he was arrested, the Chassidim in the apartment found that on his desk, they found a little note on his desk, written in pencil. And they said that from the way the note was written, it was clear that the note had been written before Rosh Hashanah of that year, so 8 months earlier. And in the note, the previous Rebbe writes about this idea of saying Tehillim. So something that was already on his mind, something that he had started thinking about and even started to write about already in the end of the summer of 1926, and something that had already been established. The reason they could tell was because at the end of his letter, he writes, it's not really a letter addressed to anybody, it's just sort of a note, a memo, where he writes that he wants Chassidim to say Tehillim every day, as is divided in the month, and it's something that everybody should be doing. And then he encourages that's for professionals and for scholars. It didn't matter what you had a career, you worked, you studied. Didn't matter what you were doing. Everybody, the Tehillim should be recited by everybody. And he also encouraged that the Balabatim, the business people, should spend time, even though they had to go to work, should spend time in the shul after Ma'ariv and study a little bit. Anyway, and then he writes that, and with this, that will guarantee that everybody will have a good year, something to that effect. So they could tell, we're talking about having a good year, that's something that you write about, that's on your mind high holiday time. So it was a note that he had written several months earlier. So we see that connection between the Psalms and sort of averting this terrible decree that he had seen in the air that was coming in the year of that was to come in 1927, which culminates with his arrest and near execution. That was all sort of something that preempted it and proceeded so that he could be spared. And after he got out, later again, he started to encourage this practice and to strengthen this practice. And it was one of his major campaigns that people should recite Tehillim every single day after davening. So that is part one on the Tehillim that we recite after davening, and we'll continue a little more of that tomorrow.